Thanks again for joining me on this. This is my very first time doing really anything like this and leading mPact's. I'm really, really excited to kind of be the face of MBA's young professionals and the networking group and what that means. I really want to grow this group and really create a space for them to network and engage in professional development activities, and I mean all the above. Get a mentor, be a mentor, what all of that means. And I think these videos will be really fun to kind of take that to the next level and give some cool insight to people that have been in the industry for a while.
Well, I'm glad you guys are doing this. And I'm super excited and honored, frankly, to be asked to contribute. I think Travis Dyson reached out to me. I would say he recruited me, but he basically told me that I'm going to do this. So when he asks, I do. So
I love it. You're just voluntold.
yes.
That's awesome. You're a good sport. I appreciate it. Awesome. Well, we can go ahead and just jump right into the questions. I would love to learn a little bit more about your podcast and how you got that started, and if there's anything you want to share of how that's helped your business kind of be on that type of a platform. I would love to know more about that.
Sure. So my podcast is called FinTech Fridays. You can find it wherever you download your favorite podcast: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. It started as a favor to a friend who had built a platform to essentially house and distribute mortgage and real estate finance related content. And his idea at the time was to have a daily segment that would be published out. And so because I was in the fintech space and still am, I got charged with creating this FinTech Fridays podcast, if you will. Had no idea what the heck I was doing. Literally never had. I think it had only been on it as a guest, maybe one or two at that point, and certainly never thought about hosting. Here's what it's done for me, and there's been some indirect real benefits from doing this. So first of all, the format of what I do is I tend to try to talk to people that I maybe don't know about products that I'm not aware of and companies that are maybe new to the market. And I record those conversations. And the idea is that I'm learning about a cool person, a cool product, or a cool company. And while I'm learning, I'm assuming that people like me are also curious. And so the whole basis of the podcast is to spend 20 minutes getting to know some new product, new service, new company, new person in our space. Most of the time it's around technology, not always. Of late, I've been extending kind of the topics to go much broader into things like how do we help loan officers reach and engage younger prospective home buyers, as an example. Why is it important to lead with financial education if you're on the street originating loans? So we're kind of broadening out the topics, but it's all about learning. And hopefully the goal is that I personally take something away from these conversations that I can utilize in my professional life. And if that works for me, it probably works for at least one other person that might tune into the podcast.
I love that. I love that. It's really spotlighting them as well to kind of tell their story and tell why they got into this space they're in as well. I love that. That's great.
It's a lot of fun. It's been cool to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I would love to just ask you, what drew you to participating in a video for mPact's and MBA's young professionals?
So a couple things, as I mentioned, Travis reached out, and I'm a big fan of Travis. He and I were colleagues at Flagstar Bank, so definitely supportive of him personally and professionally. But more importantly, I really believe in the vision and the mission for this initiative. I at some point, Ashley, I crossed the threshold, and I'm now in the OG category in our industry. And that's not an original guy. Now I'm an old guy in the business. So I've been in and around mortgage since 1991. I've had the benefit of learning from a lot of great people over my career in different ways and different formats. And frankly, I've spent the last 9 months like going all in on video on my own channels for me personally, for me professionally, and for my company, FinLocker. And when Travis kind of put this out there, I'm like, this is perfect. This is exactly what's needed to bridge, some of the I don't want to call it a gap, because I don't think there's a gap. I just think there's a lot of people that have been at this for a long time, like myself, that have practical experience that we've learned through different market cycles. We're in a difficult cycle right now, but people need to understand that cycles come and go, and there's a lot of sun on the other side of this cycle, and I truly believe that. And those that can kind of embrace this market and kind of put their head down and just grind through it will win on the other end. And so I think it's important for people to hear that people have gone through cycles. I went through the darkest cycle. I was part of a financial institution that was seized by the FDIC in July of 2008. So it doesn't get any darker than that. And if you are willing to work at it and grind through it, you will not just survive, but thrive. And so I feel there's a duty for folks like myself that have been through it to share our experiences. And the format to share today is all about video. So I'm excited to be able to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's really great insight to just let people know that this may be the norm right now. But like you said, this is a very cyclical industry. It fluctuates, there's ups and downs, and you never know what's going to hit you. But if you can get your team and get your advisory board and your mentors and figure out how to kind of persevere and get through it, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and it'll always come back around for sure.
Yeah. The one thing I always say, no matter what the market is, people will always be buying and selling homes. Now, the velocity of that will waver from cycle to cycle, but that's just a given. People will buy and sell homes forever.
Yes, absolutely. So you said something that kind of sparked another question that I would love to ask you. Is you said that you've learned from a lot of people over the years of being in this industry, and that really stems from kind of the importance of mentorship, and whether that's somebody that's in the industry or outside of the industry, above you, a peer, that mentor is so important for you to just bounce questions off of and get at their ear and figure out exactly, just to have somebody like that to give you their experiences. So what would you say was kind of the best thing that you've learned from either having a mentor or being a mentor?
So I think there's learnings on both sides, honestly. Today, I don't know that I'm a formal mentor to anybody, but I know that I have a group of folks in the business that I communicate with frequently, that we're bouncing things off of each other, and I'd like to think that I'm adding value to their professional and personal lives in those engagements. But one of the things I learned very, very early in my career is that I didn't know it all. And there were people around me, whether I worked for them, whether they were on my team, whether perhaps they reported to me, that I could learn from. And so I've always leaned into learning and leaning into learning from others, especially others that have done something that I'm trying to do. And so there's dozens, if not 100+ people I could name that have contributed to my betterment over my career. And in all those cases, what they did is they shared with selflessness and didn't feel like they had to hold back because there was a risk to sharing information. So I've tended to, probably my biggest learning over time has been to be, give without the expectation of anything in return. And karma, whatever you want to call it, it all comes around. You get back what you put into it. And so I'm probably been more of a giver than a taker, but I can tell you that I've benefited from all of those engagements. And so for people that are, either in a spot where they can share their expertise, I would ask and, not beg, but suggest strongly that they find people that are in need of mentoring or coaching, and provide that. And then for those that are, seeking knowledge from someone that's experienced some of these things before them, they should be reaching out actively. And there's some pretty cool relationships that can form as a result. Some of those for me have turned into client partner relationships that I never had anticipated. So you just never know.
Yeah. I like that you said that you don't necessarily have any formal mentors, or you don't formally mentor anybody. And I really don't think it needs to have that
Right.
formality. I think it can be very, very casual, very friendship based and relationship based. And I mean, some of my best advice have come from people that I would consider mentors, but they weren't necessarily like the formal mentor. Like they weren't that on paper. They were
Right.
just my great friends in the industry, or somebody that I really looked up to in the industry. And I reached out to ask them a question or to be my sounding board for certain things. I've been in the industry for about 10 years or so, and had a lot of different positions to get to where I am today. And I think there's been some really, really good key pieces of advice that I've gotten from people that may have just been my boss and I've really looked up to and considered them my mentor, but maybe they didn't think of them as themselves as a mentor. So you really never know where that relationship can stem from.
Yeah, you and I share a pretty cool 3-letter acronym, right? I don't have it on my under my name here, but we're both certified mortgage bankers, and that network, and I'm sure you've experienced this. That network is super impactful, and what I've found in that particular group is that I can reach out to anybody that's, in a CMB, and they'll always take my call, take a meeting for a conversation, right? And so there's some formality out there that people, that are really serious about this industry,
Mhm.
can focus on. And I think the certified mortgage banker designation as one is, it really does define and differentiate people in the industry that demonstrate a commitment to personal growth and learning, to better serve our industry. And so for those that maybe are, 5-ish plus years in the business and are really committed to this thing long term, you should think about these designations, because it's not just about the 3 letters. It's about what you learn and what you can demonstrate in terms of proficiency. But equally important, and maybe more important, is the network that is available through that designation.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I have found some of my best relationships in the industry and best mentors. My sponsor, Rhiannon Bolin, is now my mentor, and she's given me some incredible advice over the years and was an incredible sponsor for me. And one of the reasons that I really wanted to get the CMB and become a part of that society is kind of like you said too, to give back, and what that means to the industry. I'm really digging my heels into this industry and giving it all I can. And by gaining that knowledge and gaining the inside information from really having all the knowledge within the industry, it allows me to then give back, whether that's being on a panel for somebody getting their
Yeah.
CMB, in their oral panel, or being able to sponsor somebody and kind of help bring up that next generation. It's been very fulfilling, and I can't wait to see. I only got my CMB last year, so I'm excited to see where I can use it and where that grows. But it's been great. Well, Brian, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much again for doing this. Do you have anything as kind of a last piece that you want to say to the impact community, or is there anything else that you'd love to, maybe some piece of advice that you'd like to give?
A couple things, really. One, you were awesome. You did a great job on your maiden voyage for this initiative. So appreciate your how easy you made it. Yeah, with the one thing I would leave with the group, and my assumption is if you're seeing this video, you're somehow engaged with the Mortgage Bankers Association already. But if you're not, if you're seeing this through, social or LinkedIn or whatever, out, and you're not an MBA member and your company's not an MBA member, you really should think about it. Do the diligence on the association and the benefits that come with being a member. It's not, there's a lot more to it than the conferences. A lot of people just think it's all about the conferences. That's one component of the benefit. There's amazing learning opportunities within the Mortgage Bankers Association, not just the CMB kind of path, but there's ongoing, professional development, industry education that's super impactful for ultimately for the consumers that we all touch. And then the advocacy that the MBA has for our industry and for housing finance as a whole. It's truly our voice in DC. And there's a lot of, we're in this political place where there's a lot of decisions that are going to be made that impact housing and home ownership, and those that are seeking to become homeowners, that the MBA really advocates for the consumer first and foremost, and B, for all of us who are industry participants. And by being part of MBA, you have a voice in those advocacy events and moments. So we all owe it to our industry, and we owe it to ultimately to the consumers we serve to make sure that our voice is heard in DC. And the Mortgage Bankers Association is the best resource for all of us for that. So I'll kind of leave you with that.
I love that. Power in numbers. We love to
Right
say
on.
power in numbers. That's what our grassroots advocacy is all about. And the more of a voice we can have, the bigger our voice is, the bigger impact we can have, and the more change we can make. So I appreciate that. Well, thank you so much, Brian. I really appreciate you coming on here today and recording this for me.
Thanks, Ashley. Thanks, Travis.